en presentatie.
Welcome to you all to this webinar hosted by the Royal GD and HyCare. My name is Thomas Mallens. Me and Rogier will introduce ourselves within a few minutes. But first of all, welcome to you all, especially also the people from the EU and the people from the Russian Federation. Welcome. This webinar hosted by Royal GD and HyCare from MS Schippers is about making money with clean broiler houses because of the fact that it's often not very clear what it brings. So thank you for watching, and I'd also like to invite you to ask questions as soon as there are any inconveniences, things to talk about. So please make use of our chat right in the upper part of your screen regarding the presentation and the questions you may or are able to ask. First of all, so why this webinar? The link between the hygiene and results in the chat is not always crystal clear. So in a lot of conversations that we've got all around the world, it's always, the question, what does it bring to me? Protocols, and more important for very big integrators, are the best way to put theory into practice. So it's always a bit of a clash between theory and practice. How do you combine these two things to make it more practical? Cleaning and disinfection processes are changing quite a lot. So the knowledge regarding cleaning and disinfection is also changing very fast. So we constantly have to upgrade our protocols to make a better job. And last one, monitoring cleaning and disinfection will show if you have room for improvement. So if you monitor, then you know, okay, is there improvement for my protocol and therefore my results in my shed? Yes or no? Okay, do we have to work on that? So the agenda for the coming 30 till 40 minutes. First of all, the plan, the relation between clean houses and the results. So if we plan something, it's very good to know what the goal is. And if we know the goal, better results, then we can go back to the fact if there is room for improvement, then we can increase our results in our shed. The second one, do the right protocol, not only for this flock, but year round. Why do we clean? Why do we disinfect? And what's the right protocol on that? The check, so improved monitoring will say a lot more about the cleaning and disinfection process, not only on the moment that we cleaned and disinfected, but Rogier will tell you more about a bigger development regarding monitoring in broiler houses. And the last one, of course, is the responsibility and adopting of changes in your protocol. So are you responsible as an integrator or as an employee of an integrator, or do you make some other people as suppliers also responsible for the results that you're aiming to get? First of all, I would like to introduce myself briefly. My name is Thomas Mallens, already worked 10 years for Schippers. The last year we developed the HyCare brand. Started my career as a student on the Helsinki University of Animal Sciences and did a lot of research on preventive animal health. And the last decade I spent a lot of my time in the development of hygiene protocols, standards regarding poultry and especially broilers. And we do also a lot of hygiene projects for eradicating salmonella out of primary broiler houses and farms. I will give the word to you here.
Thank you very much.
Take a shot.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Rogier van Leeuwen. I'm a veterinarian and I worked in poultry for more than 10 years. I worked with Elanco for a few years on the salmonella business and mainly vaccinations, and also on intestinal integrity. And I became a senior TC for Elanco, and also for Salmonella and intestinal integrity / coccidiosis. It is really important to start a flock in a proper clean house. And last year I started with Royal GD, one of the biggest veterinary laboratories in the world. And we also do a lot of consultancy for people all over the world. And please ask any questions in the chat when you have them. We have 4 agenda points. So we would like to end the topics with your questions to answer them. And otherwise, you can seek contact with Thomas or me to discuss things further to improve your cleaning and disinfection protocol or control it. The title of this webinar is Make More Money with Clean Broiler Houses. And Royal GD has invented, and we can zoom in on this one, a test, the VIR-Check, to see if broiler houses are clean or not, if the chickens will have a good start. And when you have a high VIR-Check score, it means that you have a lot of viruses in your broiler house when the chickens start. And on the left side, you see, or on the bottom, you see the VIR-Check score. And when it's really low, the broiler houses were really clean. And for now, there's not that much scientific proof that clean broiler houses give you a better result. And with the VIR-Check, you can make visible when you have clean broiler houses that you have a better profit out of your flocks. And we found that when you decrease your VIR-Check scores with 60 points, I will discuss and explain the VIR-Check later on, but we wanted to start with this graph to give you a point on the horizon what you can earn with clean houses. Then you can earn money with it. And the data you can see here about the mortality and the feed conversion rate and the daily weight gain are made out of the first 26 houses we tested. And only the daily weight gain has a significant result, which we show here, but the other ones are also very important in increasing your profit. And with calculating the feed conversion rate, you can gain profit. And it's easy to put a figure on the feed conversion rate point. And when you decrease your VIR-Check score with 60 points, you will save 3 points of feed conversion rate. And that means 0.7 euro cents per broiler, which seems to be a really small amount. But in a broiler house, that will save you 850 euro, a broiler house of 40,000 broilers. And in an integration of 100 million broilers slaughtered per year, that will give you an extra profit of 2 million euro. And we would like to help you to catch that amount of money. And we'll come back to that later. But this is the point on the horizon. And now I'll give the word back to Thomas to tell you how to get there.
Yeah. So the fact that we just have seen, like Rogier told, is cleaner broiler houses directly lead to better and improved results, technical results. So also directly a better profit from out of your flocks, farms, and after all, your whole integration. That's one of the things, of course, but on that, we need to know what is a clean shed. So how do we improve our method of working? Is there improvement? And in a lot of cases, yes, there is improvement possible. How do we get to the point that we get the cleanest sheds on the best way and the most practical way that's also applicable by our workers or our hygiene responsible people within our company? And to give you a scope on where we talk about on the whole picture from when the flock gets out towards the end, we talk about 50 million germs in the beginning that are still in when the manure is taken out. That's the point where there are still 50 million germs in, and of course there is still a lot of manure, dust, and so on and so on. So the bacterial pressure is very high. Afterwards, we're flushing, so the first optical cleaning, as we call it, and that's a decrease to 20 million germs. But after that, the real cleaning starts to really get rid of the germs till 99%. And that step from the optical cleaning towards the real cleaning with soap and so on and so on, and talk about the topic later. We see that that's the biggest step in our whole cleaning process. After cleaning, we go to a wet disinfection, which means that all inventory and floors where broilers come in contact with are disinfected on a wet base, so really wet. And afterwards, we've got a dry disinfection. But the biggest step in the whole process is the cleaning phase, from optical cleaning to the real cleaning phase. And therefore, we're going to talk about this topic a little bit more in the next few minutes. But in a lot of cases, if we talk about protocols and getting a better disinfected shed or a better well-cleaned shed, it's about the disinfection phase. And that's where the discussion starts. Okay, is my disinfectant right? Yes or no? Is my way of applicating right? Yes or no? That's often the discussion. And from our point of view, the discussion also has to be taking place about the fact that the cleaning phase is not always very well made. So looking at the cleaning phase, 4 things in a specific protocol. And I'm not going to talk about a fully protocol and a one-size-fits-all construction for all farms throughout Europe, throughout the Russian Federation, because it's always custom-made. I would say protocols for 70 till 80% are one-size-fits-all, but the real difference is made farm-specific. Where do we have to look at, and so on and so on, and we have to really put that in the right protocol, farm-specific. And the monitoring, of course, is very important, like Rogier already told. But the hardware, how do I put my foams on? How do I put my stuff on my inventory and my floors? So the hardware, how do we manage the hardware for application? The application itself, does it go fast? Do we let it soak for the right time? And so on and so on. That's part of the protocol. And of course, the product. And we mainly made a product based on the center circle. And the center circle is a very old circle. It's in the middle. And it's based on the time that we've got to clean, the temperature that is available for cleaning, the mechanic pressure on the left downside, and the chemical that is used. And all these 4 things together are making a total protocol good, better, or best. If we have a look at time, well, what we see normally is that there isn't 2 weeks in between 2 flocks. And in a normal integration, normal farms, 3, 4, 5 days is in a lot of cases the max. So time is an issue that we have to put in the protocol. How do we get as fast as possible through the protocol with the most effort and, after all, the best result? So time is an issue, but we have to compensate the fact of time that we put a bit more in mechanical pressure maybe and a bit more in the chemical way. Temperature is also in a lot of cases discussion. Do we have to rinse or do we have to clean with hot water or cold water? Well, from our point of view and what we've seen on the results on hygiene, there is no big difference in cleaning with cold water or hot water. So the result of cleaning is not made by if you're using cold water or hot water. What we've seen in practice is that using hot water is mainly because it cleans faster. So the result is not made out of cold water or hot water, but it goes faster. So you can take that in mind for making your process. Do we want to clean with hot or cold water? Yes, hot water, because of the fact that it goes faster, but my cleaning result isn't affected by it. So we put a lot of effort in the chemical which we use and in the mechanical way of cleaning. And it's not always the pumps with the highest pressure, of course, that make the difference, but a lot of rinsing and a lot of flushing that really make a difference. So, one hand, the 4 facts about monitoring hardware application and product, and the other hand, the center circle. Am I prepared, and do these 4 things grab into each other to make it a fully good protocol? So, if we maybe can zoom in on this one. Foam, why do we use foam in our protocols? Because foam is active. It's an active degreaser. So what we mainly see that people think about the fact that foam is sucked into fats or proteins to dilute them, to decrease them, but it's also an active component. So the bubbles that come up with the foaming, with the air which is in, makes the foam totally active. So bubbles pop constantly on the surface, and therefore they rinse or scrape really the surface. And the longer the foam is attached to a vertical surface, the better it will decrease. So attaching time is very important, and the decreasing power is very important. And therefore, a clean surface is made by the decreasing power times the contact time. And on the floor, of course, it's very important to have a product which is very good in decreasing, because your contact time is not affected by gravity, where foam runs down the walls on vertical surfaces. On the other hand, we got to make a choice between what kind of foam do we use. And foam does have a certain pH. And alkaline products, so products which go to a pH of 14, are mainly very good decreasing products. So for fats and proteins, we use a high pH foam to really decrease. But on the other hand, acidified foams, so acid foams, are really good to get rid of your mineral contamination on your surfaces. So in practice, we see that some inventories, some sheds, are not cleanable anymore, as people or workers say, because there is a layer on top which is brown, which is yellow, and so on and so on. They use an alkaline foamer, but if we use just an acid foamer once, because in a lot of cases this is a raw layer of mineral, so limescale or manganese or iron, which is built up throughout the years. Can't use an alkaline cleaner for that. You have to use a lower pH cleaner. So the choice year-round, which cleaner do I use, is very important on this one. So foam for the active substance and the cleaning time, and the pH of the foam, what do I want to clean out? And a lot of cases, of course, fats and proteins, but maybe once or twice a year also a lower pH foam to get rid of mineral contamination. So we let's zoom in on this one also. The results of decreasing are, of course, very important before we start disinfecting. So if our decreasing part, our cleaning part, is well done, I directly could say that in 95% of the cases, our disinfection part is also well done. In a lot of cases where we see that there is still a lot of germ pressure after disinfection, we could directly relate that to a bad cleaning procedure. So we measured a lot of sheds throughout the years to make a sort of base. Okay, which kind of surface is cleanable, well cleanable, or not well cleanable. So what we've seen with ATP measuring device, so adenine triphosphate measuring, that after removing the manure out of the shed, we've got an RLU result of 56,000. And does this 56,000 say something about the contamination? No, it's just a number, but you have to see the number in relation to the other numbers and results you've seen. You can see in this table underneath. A concrete floor, for example, which is 12 years old, cleaned with just water, gives us a result of 14,000. So 3 to 4 times better than just getting the manure out. So you could still say that it's quite contaminated. Then, if you go a step further, a concrete floor of 12 years old, so a little bit worn out floor already, and especially underneath the feeding pens and drinkers mainly, you already see that some stones, so the parts of concrete which are in, are popping up. Cleaned with a strong degreaser, we could reach a result of 5,000 RLU. So 3 times better than just cleaning with water. But we don't get any way further beneath 5,000 on these types of floors. So if you got a power floated floor, so a new floor which is very close on the surface, we could get to maybe 2,000 or maybe 1,000 in the next example. But on worn out floors, they are just very hard to clean. So we did put a coating in, a pore-free surface to make sure that there were no water and flushing water drawn into the floor during the cleaning time, so that everything is closed, so it's all plastic, like your inventory mainly. So a floor which is coated, so there's a coating on, if this floor was 12 years old or 5 years old, doesn't matter of course, cleaned with a strong degreaser, we can run back with the result up to 1,000 RLU. So 5,000 RLU for just a normal concrete floor, which is 12 years old. And of course, there are a lot of differences in types of concrete floors, well power floated, not well power floated, and so on and so on. But just a main floor of 12 years old is not very well cleanable. Coated floor is good cleanable, and like a feeding pen with a strong degreaser, with a long cleaning time, can go back to 918 RLU. So 56 times better cleaned than the moment when the manure is taken out. So looking at the disinfection protocol, so we cleaned very well, and like I said, it's just a topic of farm-specific ways to clean. We have to look at the disinfection protocol, and if we run a normal disinfection protocol, if we run a HyCare protocol, we made a difference in what normally is done and what we are thinking is the best way. And what we also see is that a house which is 18 years old, made out of concrete, a concrete floor, with a cleaning and disinfection protocol run by the HyCare method, we get a score of 0.8, and it's made by Rodak. A house of 18 years old with concrete with a normal cleaning and disinfection protocol, we just go directly up to 1.3. So what you see is that when a house is old and you've got a concrete floor, if you got a good cleaning and disinfection protocol, or just a normal cleaning and disinfection protocol, there is also directly a difference. If you got a house which is only 3 years old, so still quite good power floated, you'll directly see with a normal cleaning and disinfection protocol or with a HyCare cleaning and disinfection protocol, it directly runs down a point of 5, 6, that it's better. So the state of your shed is very important, and the way you work out your whole protocol, and therefore also the practical implementation of your protocol, so the way it's done. So looking at these figures, this is how we normally in Holland run these figures. So colony forming units, if you are between an average of 0 and 1, then you did a good job, a magnificent job. And if you run down, it's getting worse and worse. And at a point of above 2, you really have to think about that it's really a bad procedure. But I think that below 1, you always have to aim below 1. And eventually, as good as possible, is aiming for 0. So what germs do we talk about? And in the disinfection procedure throughout the year, we take in mind there are different germs popping up throughout the year, mainly because of the weather. mainly because of certain pressure of certain germs throughout the flux that is building up. So we take in mind bacteria. Maybe we can zoom in on this one also to give a bit more a schedule on that. So do we fight gram-positive bacteria or do we fight gram-negative bacteria? There's a difference in a bit of a way how to deal with these types of germs. Now, viral threats also, so we know that the naked viruses are very hard to disinfect, like envelope viruses are mainly done easier. So if we got a Rio or a sort of virus that is really affecting our flock, we have to take in mind that we really also have to disinfect the right way to get rid of this pressure. Now, parasites, and the main parasite in the broiler industry, of course, is the MIRA, so the coccidiosis. And we run a protocol where we, on a preventive way, disinfect twice a year regarding coccidiosis, so that the pressure runs up, of course, throughout the flocks, but we directly break it down till almost zero, let's put it this way, and then it can grow up, but that there are no clinical or subclinical signs, or at least as possible, throughout the building up of coccidiosis. So not disinfecting at the moment that is really a problem, but always on the front side. So therefore we'd have to make a disinfection protocol throughout the year. And of course there are still molds, but they are not that important as, of course, bacteria, viral threats, the viruses, and the coccidiosis. So looking at a year-round protocol, we have to look at the different flocks throughout the year, 7 or 8 mainly. And what we do within the HyCare method, we make this protocol with certain goals on flock 1 till flock 8. And like you see on this screen, the aldehydes, quats, and ammonium chlorides, so the base products, it's a broad range also for naked viruses to kill them off. We did it, for example, in the first flock on a wet way, with a wet disinfection, and the dry disinfection, so the fogging way. The next, we do a phenolic compound on a wet way, and therefore we kill off bacteria, of course, but also we kill off already a lot of oocysts, even when there are no signs or no problems with coccidiosis, but we know it's building up. And for the dry disinfection, we do the broad range. And on this way, we go throughout the year. So within the HyCare method, within the protocols, we know for the whole year how to clean, and it's mainly the same throughout the year, but the disinfection protocol is differentiating throughout the year just to kill off certain threats, certain pressure during the year. So that's something to take in mind, but has to be crystal clear for your workers on a practical way just before starting the whole process. And of course, therefore also custom made for the last 30%. The word is to you, Rogier.
Don't we have a video?
Oh, the video.
We'll do a video right now about explaining how to clean a house properly first. Good. There was a video on how to clean properly, and it's really important to clean properly. As I mentioned in the beginning, you can save money when you clean properly. But first you need to know how to check if your cleaning and disinfection was performed right. At the moment, we can check with Rodak plates and swabs if there's any bacterial pressure in the house, but then you only will monitor or check really small surfaces in the broiler house. And you can also do ATP testing, which is developed to see if lab surfaces, which are really smooth and flat, which is really important, as Thomas just mentioned, that coating is important. If they are really disinfected properly. And there's also some virus plates, but at the moment they are not really commercially attractive. And it is better to check for viruses. And Royal GD developed the VIR-Check, where we check the result of your cleaning and disinfection by looking at the number of viruses and the quantity of those viruses in the broiler houses at the start. We do the test on 5 different naked viruses, and Thomas already mentioned that the naked viruses are quite resistant and really important to get rid of, in example, the Rio virus. And we check on viruses that are always in your broiler house at slaughter age. And also it is important that the test is easy to perform, and the VIR-Check is easy to perform. The tests consists of taking 6 swabs of broilers at random in your house on age day 6 or 7, and then we check for the 5 naked viruses I will mention a little later. And the broilers in the first days have time to walk around, drink from the drinkers, scratch and walk all over the broiler house. And we use the chickens as incubators. They collect what they find in the broiler house and they grow it. And at day 6, 7, we will check what is in them. And we check on these 5 naked viruses, of which the chicken astrovirus and the avian influenza virus number 3 are really small naked viruses, and the Rota A and D and Rio viruses are also naked viruses, but a little bit bigger. And we check for naked viruses because they have a protein coat on the outside and are quite resistant to disinfectants. And we check for these 5 viruses because we found out in the Netherlands that almost all broiler flocks get in touch with these 5 viruses. Only Rota D we found in 50% of the flocks, but all the other 4 are always in the chicken houses. So you need to break the cycle by good cleaning and disinfection, because you know at the end of the cycle these viruses are in the house, and you know that your house is properly cleaned when you don't find them at the beginning of the next flock. And you can check that with the VIR-Check. And naked viruses are really important. As we can see here, in this pyramid, we show how vulnerable the microorganisms are to disinfectants. And we see at the bottom the bacteria, which are quite vulnerable to disinfectants. But when you check for the enveloped viruses, and you know that when they are killed, also everything below these naked viruses is killed, that everything is gone. So when you know that your VIR-Check score is low because you didn't find any of these naked viruses, then probably also your gram-positive, gram-negative bacteria and your enveloped viruses are gone. And the cleaning and disinfection circle is really important. You first need to do a proper cleaning and disinfection, and you can look at your bacterial load after cleaning or disinfection. but then you miss the upper part of the resistant naked viruses, and you can check those with the cloaca swabs of 6 animals at day 6. You can put those 6 swabs on an FDA card and send them to the laboratory of Royal GD, and you get a good result. And then you know if your cleaning and disinfection protocol had the right result and if you need to adjust it or not. And this is a practical graph of an FDA card. On the FDA card, you can push the swabs, the 6 swabs of 1 broiler house, and on an FDA card, the microorganisms are killed, but the genetic material is preserved on that card. And you can store that at room temperature for more than 2 years, and we still can find out what microorganisms were in your house. And we will check with the VIR-Check on the 5 just mentioned naked viruses. And on such an FDA card, you can get swabs of 4 broiler houses. And in the end, you will get this result. We check for these 5 viruses. We see if we will find them. And in this house, rotavirus D was not around. We found a little small amount of rotavirus A, which here is shown negative because it's a logarithm scale, so it was lower than 1. And we find some astroviruses, and also in a quite high number. So this house, we made it orange with a VIR-Check score of 75, which is quite high. So there's room for improvement. If you lower it with 60 points and go to a VIR-Check score of 15, I just started with my presentation with it, you can earn money. And this is, of course, an important tool to see if all your efforts done in cleaning and disinfection has the right result. And yeah, please check and monitor if your cleaning and disinfection was done right, because you put money in it and effort. But when it's not done correctly, you should know, because then you can earn money by doing it correctly. And now I'll give the word back to Thomas to explain you more about it. And when you have any questions, please put them in the chat and we can come back to you maybe in a private session.
So we talked about the planning, so where we're aiming for better results. Okay, how can we monitor this to really get a quantitative result on what the situation is? We talked about the doing, the making of the protocol and getting practice in combination with theory in your shed, on your workers, and on your responsible people in your integration for that part of your integration. We talked about the check, so how can we monitor on a quantitative way? And the last one, of course, is act. And acting is not by making a protocol and directly say, well, this is it, and of course we're off and we're doing this better. So acting is getting a trigger first. And this trigger is maybe done on this webinar, that you will say to your colleagues, hey, this is very interesting, we need to really improve. But your trigger can also be that your mortality rates, for example, in the first week are quite high. Is it the direct result of the cleaning process or the disinfection process which is in right? I wouldn't say that directly, but it could be a part of it. Maybe your results on your normal flocks throughout the total 6 or 7 weeks are not quite good. So maybe there's also room for improvement regarding the cleaning and disinfection. But there has to be a trigger. And in this part, we see the yellow dot with Q. So the trigger, do we have to change? Do we want to change? And the higher the trigger is, so the bigger the problem, the more we want to change. But it starts with you, with your Q&A officers in your integration, your workers, that there is a trigger to change. If it's only you that changes and your workers doesn't change, then nothing happens in your protocol, because your protocol is as good as it is performed in your shed. And when the trigger is high and we start changing protocols, we start changing the way we clean and disinfect, then we get in a sort of routine. And in this routine, we get better, of course, and better and better. But from trigger to routine and really implementing, and that people are really thinking about the fact we have to do it differently, is mainly a time of in between 20 and let's say 100 days. So it's quite a time. So we have to support, focus, we have to make it easy, checking, all that type of stuff to really put focus on those people to get the trigger right, and therefore also the routine after a while. And of course, the aim on that is that we get a reward. Better results, better clean shed after all, lower mortality. There are a few things you can mention, of course. And when this reward is collected, you also can make the next trigger because you know it works for aiming for the next goals in your company. So it's not about making a nice protocol on the computer, but it's really a practical way. So making the right protocol, but also the practical way of implementing. And therefore, we think it's very important on the HyCare method also, that we not only say this is what you have to do, but that we guide it. That we're a part of the responsibility of the success, but also that we can directly interfere when things go wrong. Because guidance is what is making people eventually to get a routine in something. So quality, of course, is important, but the habit loop, as we call it, is very important in your whole situation for the changing, the triggering, the changing towards routine, towards reward. It's not a process of 2 or 3 days. It's a little bit of a longer time. And therefore, I want to talk about the last sheet on this webinar is about the responsibility of cleaner sheds. Aiming for better results, the responsibility. Who is responsible for cleaner sheds? And what we see in a lot of cases is that if we guide integrators for the first time, one person, maybe 2 people from or employees from the integrator are responsible for it. But they have to check on whether the farm is doing right, but also the cleaning and disinfection protocol. And they have to deal with the products which they are using. They have to deal with the application. How do we applicate all these things? The monitoring, and they have to deal with the hardware. And all these things directly have to come together, as you see in the left part of the sheet, has to come together in this shed. But who is responsible? Is the product supplier responsible, or is the monitoring supplier responsible? Who's responsible for the direct result? And what we're aiming for within the HyCare brand is that we take a piece of responsibility to us to make a thin layer in between for the guidance, the support, but also the supplying of the hardware, the application, the training for your workers, and so on, to really make it one big project that we can introduce into your company. So responsibility of the project, and therefore also responsibility for the eventual results in how to get cleaner sheds, and therefore also to get more profit out of your primary farms. This was the last sheet, so thank you for watching and listening. If there are any questions left, please leave them in the comments or click on the button below in your screen. In a lot of webinars we've already done, we did some private sessions with people that said, okay, I want to discuss my personal situation or my company situation on this. This could be together with Rogier, dependently on what the question is, of course. So I would like to invite you to contact us when you feel a need or when you just want to discuss a few things or some questions. So thank you for watching again, and we'll keep in touch, of course, with the rest of the webinars that will follow on animal health regarding the poultry industry. And we would like to wish you a nice day, and maybe you can say something really to the end.
Thank you very much for watching. I hope we can get in closer contact to support you to increase your profit with cleaner broiler houses, and stay in touch with the Dutch.